In this video, I'm going to show you how to do the ground fault test for a Kidde VS Series fire alarm panel. So we have on the front here, the Kidde VS Series. And on our little card in here, we got the, looks like VS1 model. So currently we have a battery trouble missing. So this is part of my test. This is supposed to be there, so that's fine. But we're going to do a ground fault test for the panel. So we're going to test both, or we're going to ground fault both the NAC circuit, which if you look on the board here is to the right. There are NAC circuits right here, and then our SLC circuits right here. So when doing a ground fault test, you're going to ground fault each type of supervised circuit. So this panel has a NAC supervised circuit and an SLC supervised circuit. So we're going to ground fault both of those types of circuits. Now in this case, this panel has two different NACs, has NAC 1, NAC 2. We're only going to ground fault one of the wires for the NAC circuit. So we'll take, as an example, for NAC 2, we'll ground fault our red lead, our positive lead. We don't need to ground fault each wire because we just need to ground fault the supervision of this type of circuit. So these are NACs, so I need to verify that if the NACs ground fault, they go into ground fault. I need to verify that that supervision function works. And then same thing with the SLC here. It has a resistor on the other one, on the other say here, so it just has the one SLC. So I'm gonna ground fault either the red or the black. When doing the ground fault, you don't do the positive lead together, positive and negative together, because the ground fault's only going to be on one line. So the reason why we do a ground fault is sometimes your wiring, you might have exposed copper wire. So you see inside the terminals we have our copper wiring. I don't know how I can see that. There we go. We have our copper wiring, and it could be running through like a conduit, like something on here, like a conduit, or it could go to a J box, a junction box, something like that. And there could be exposed copper that's touching metal, and it's going to ground out the system, which will basically cause the electricity to kind of flow out of the wire and ground out. And that could cause issues with your system. So like it could cause like devices to not work potentially. So we do a ground fault test on the panel to see if it recognizes that when the system is in ground fault, and it'll tell you. So like I said, we're going to do it for each type of supervised circuit. So we have two types of supervised circuits. We have our NAC and our SLC. So these two types of circuits we're going to ground fault. So sometimes you can just ground fault directly to the board if there's an available screw. Usually, or I should say first, since this panel has their positive negative ground coming in, it's grounded to the board. So this panel is grounded. So you could use any of these like corner screws as an example to ground fault. See that one on the corner. You could also use on the side of the panel, you have screws or little nuts and bolts, little screws. So what I'm going to do is use my alligator clips. I'm going to take this off, sorry. So I'm just going to clip this, a little alligator clip. I'm just going to clip it to one of these screws. Probably if we do from the side, there we go. So I'm going to clip it on there. And on the other end, I'm going to attach my resistor like I did this. And this is a 4.7K resistor. Actually, let me, where's my little baggie? Where's that? There we go. So this is a 4.7K resistor that I'm using, just for reference. And what I'm going to do is, you see my wire here. If I can do this so you can see the whole wire. There you go. So my wire just goes from one end to the other. So I'm going to use my end holding the resistor, and I'm going to touch it to the NAC circuit, the positive lead, and then I'm going to touch it to the SLC circuit on the positive lead, and I'm going to get both the NAC circuit to ground fault, and I'm going to get the SLC circuit to ground fault. And I'm going to see if this panel recognizes a ground fault. So I'm going to go ahead and just touch this, just like that. And it went right into ground fault. So system ground fault, and you can see right here, my ground fault LED is lit up. So right now, the NAC circuit is in ground fault. So it recognizes when it goes into ground fault. So I'm going to let go now and hit the acknowledge. So I have two troubles, the battery and the ground fault, and this should clear. There you go. This ground fault, this should clear after a few seconds, and this light should go away as well. There you go. So the light just went away. I'm down to one trouble now. So I just have my battery trouble, which again, that's part of my test. That's supposed to be there. That's fine. So this trouble is supposed to be there. But my ground fault went away. So I ground faulted the NAC circuit. And again, I don't have to do it for each NAC. So there's 4 wires here. I don't have to ground fault each NAC, the positive, negative, I just got to do it for once because I got to test to see if the panel is in fact supervising these NACs, right, which it is. So next, I'm going to ground fault the other type of supervised circuit, which is the SLC, which is right here. So as you can see, it says SLC1. Hopefully you can see that. There we go, SLC1. And we have our positive and negative lead on it. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take this, my alligator clips, right? Remember, I'm connected to the screw here. So this is where I'm grounding out to, is the screw on here on the inside of the panel. And now I'm going to touch this to the SLC circuit and do the exact same thing. So I'm going to do this through the camera, which is hard to do. There we go. So now I'm touching it. So we're going to wait and see for our ground fault to come in. Hopefully this is far enough back. There you go. You can see I'm on there. Might take a minute or so. Or maybe not a minute, it might take a few seconds. Because we're just grounding out the SLC circuit right now. There we go. So now I have my light. You see the ground fault. You see on my screen, system ground fault. All right, so now I'm grounding out the SLC circuit. So I'm going to remove it. I'm going to hit acknowledge so it stops beeping. Set my 2 troubles. So my battery missing, and then my ground fault trouble. So again, I'm just going to wait for the ground fault to clear, and then this will clear. So the system's got to, check the system. Okay, there we go. So my ground fault light cleared, and my trouble went away. So now I just have my 1 trouble for my battery missing. Again, that's part of my test. That's supposed to be there. So we ground faulted the NAC circuit, and we ground faulted the SLC circuit. So both types of circuits are being supervised by the panel, and they both ground faulted. So we know now if the NAC circuit goes into ground fault or the SLC circuit goes into ground fault, the panel will indicate that. It'll go into trouble, it'll beep, it'll tell you there's a ground fault, it'll report out and everything. So again, the point of this is if there's any exposed wiring, like I said, going through conduit, inside of the can, inside of these J-box or devices or something like that, and the metal's touching metal, essentially, the copper's touching metal, it's gonna kind of leak out and it's gonna ground out to that system, so it could cause issues on your devices. So like a horn strobe might not work, a smoke detector might not activate, something like that. So this panel does in fact monitor both these circuits, and it both works. So this is part of our test. We do this just to make sure that, again, if there is a ground fault, the panel will indicate that to us, and we could set it up for troubleshooting to service the issue and fix the problem. So that is how you do a ground fault test on a Kidde VS Series fire alarm panel.